Good evening to 12th grade students, parents, and guidance counselors. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series. We have a very esteemed panelist here today, someone who I've known pretty well in the higher education space over the last couple of years, Mr. Pranav Pradhan. And Mr. Pranav Pradhan, as you've seen in an outreach campaign which has gone on to your schools, is from the University of San Francisco. And the session topic for the day is higher education in the US and the US application process. As you have seen in our outreach campaign, the first 30 minutes would be about the session topic for the day, and the second 30 minutes would be about the institution, the University of San Francisco. Furthermore, just please kindly ensure to post all your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, because Mr. Pradhan would be looking towards the Q&A box towards the end of the session to answer all your lovely questions. And you can feel free to posting your questions as we go along as well. Having given this introduction, Mr. Pranav Pradhan, it's a pleasure to host you for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your time on a Friday evening. I wish you all the best for the presentation seminar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kunal. Um, Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Pranav Pradhan. I am the Director of International Admissions at the University of San Francisco. As Kunal mentioned that, the first half of the presentation is going to be a little bit about the higher education in the US specifically and the application process. So we will go over a few different things in the first section, and then towards the end, we can talk a little bit about what University of San Francisco has to offer. So as I said, oh, hold on for a second, I'm sorry. Right. So the first one is, I said, just to give you, or, whatever questions you might have at the end, you can just add them in the Q&A. So my primary role at the institution is that I review applications. So students who submit their applications to the University of San Francisco, I review them. I look at your grades, transcripts, I read your essays. I evaluate those. I make those admissions decisions. So at any point, if you already have some information about the application process, if you want to clarify a few things, how we actually look at an application, feel free to put that question in, and I'll be happy to answer that. Okay. So just going ahead, in this, like, over the years, what we have always seen is that the US education system has been very, very popular. Lots of times, students think about it that, yes, I want to go study in the US. But why has US education system been so popular? What really makes it stand out? I mean, there are top universities all over the world, right? There are fantastic institutions starting from your very own city all the way, anywhere on the globe. So why is US always been sought after? So the first thing that always comes to mind is flexibility. Okay, flexibility is something that definitely stands out. Let's say you're a student who is pursuing engineering, but you also want to study music. You can do that. If you are somebody who's thinking about psychology but also want to study biology with it, you can do that. The flexibility of the US education system is at multiple levels, not just choosing majors, minors, creating your own sort of major if you wanted to. But I would say, especially in the current circumstances, this flexibility has really something that's has stood out. The way the US universities have adapted to the current situation, I think the flexibility definitely stands out right here. Quality, as I said, there are top quality institutions all over the world. But when we talk about the United States, just in one country, there are over 4,700, universities. There are over 4,700 universities, right? So think about it. Even if you say 5 or 10% of these are, good institutions, you just have a lot of that quantity over there. Talking about choice, as I said, let's say you are somebody from a big city, you want to study in a big city, and at a small college. So, there are all sorts of these combinations available, whether you want to go and study at a big institution in a small town, or whether you want to study at a small institution on top of a hill, or whether you want to study, in a very big university in a very big city. All sorts of combinations will be available. Value is something that you really have to think about in terms of what you're investing and what you're getting out of it, right? So the US education is valued all over the world. It's something that you will carry with you forever, right? Diversity is something that plays a very big role. And the reason being is, and especially again in today's scenario, employers are looking for people who have the capability of communicating with people from different cultures, right? And when you come to a US campus, you will see students coming from all over the world. at the University of San Francisco, we have students coming from about 100 different countries. We have students coming from all the 50 states of the United States, and the city of San Francisco itself is such a diverse location. So diversity definitely plays a big role in the kind of, I would say, the way you build your communication, the way you build your personality. I think it plays a very big role. So uh, usually we don't talk a lot about, why study in the US anymore, is because just it's taken that students already know about this, but I feel that it's very important to highlight that why for years and years US has been the top destination. Okay, so let's quickly look at some of the like what the education system is like. The typical education system in the United States is, I would say, similar to majority of the other countries, but also slightly different when it comes to some very specific things. Okay, so first of all, you guys are at the high school levels. You probably IB, A level, CBSE, or state board, right? So this is where everyone is at. Um, so you guys are probably at 11th or 12th grade. So you're right at the high school level. After high school, students go and pursue a bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree in the United States is a 4-year program, right? After that 4-year bachelor's degree, students go for a master's degree. I've very specifically not mentioned the duration of a master's degree because it could be a 1-year master's degree, it could be a 3-year master's degree also. But typically, a student after their bachelor's, they go for a master's degree. After a master's degree, they go for a PhD. And this is what a typical system looks like, whether it is US, whether it is India, or whether it is any other country, right? But here are some of the differences. In the United States, after your bachelor's degree, you could go to a 2-year community college and then transfer into a 4-year institutions. There is a very specific reason students do that. If you want to save cost, this is one of the very big ways to save cost of your bachelor's degree. For a second. The other big difference is students from their bachelor's degree can directly go into a PhD program. This is something that even the new Indian government policy is actually highlighting in a certain way. So students who want to pursue PhD, they can do a bachelor's degree which has some sort of research component in it, and instead of going through a master's degree, they can directly apply for a PhD program. So that option is available, and soon it will probably be available in India as well. Talking about professional programs, so law, dentistry, medicine. So typically in the United States, if you're thinking about being a doctor or lawyer, you cannot go to a law school or a medical school right after your grade 12. So there is no concept of MBBS or a LLB kind of a degree in the United States. In the US, if you want to pursue a medical degree, you will do a 4-year bachelor's degree. It could be a major like biology, it could be psychology, it could be anything, right? You will do these programs, and you will be on the pre-medical or the pre-law track. Once you finish your bachelor's degree, you apply to a medical school. I can assure you, like, medical school in the United States is extremely challenging to get into. The statistics of international students getting into a medical school has been less than 0.1%. So it's not just about the rigor, but it's also about there are just not enough spaces available. So if you are somebody who wants to pursue medicine, please research the US education system properly and make sure that's what you're looking for. Law, I would say, is probably not as difficult as a medical school, but there are some fantastic law schools. Actually, we offer a law program. We have a so the law degree also is called as JD, Juris Doctor. So there are we have a law school on campus. Students have an option of finishing their Juris Doctor degree in about 6 years. Talking about the choice, we talked about how there are over 4,700 universities. So how do you really go from 4,700 plus to maybe 8 or 10 universities that you might apply in grade 11 or sorry grade 12, right? So that's a task a lot of you probably are worried about right now, working on it in some way or the other, or may have already done it already, right? So in terms of shortlisting universities, there are some very important factors that you need to think about. Now, typically students go with rankings, right? But I can assure you, ranking is not necessarily the best way to look at it. I mean, as much as I would tell a student that do not look at ranking, I know they will look at it at a certain level. So fine, look at them, but let that not be the first thing you look at. Okay. The best, like the right way to go about it is to find the best fit. Now, when I say find the best fit, I'm really making your job a little more difficult than just by using ranking. However, that is the right way to go about it. Okay, so think about the shortlisting. When you're shortlisting, there are you need to find the institution that is best fit for you. Now, how do you really find the best fit, right? So before you really go and start looking for institutions that are right for you, you really need to think about what is important to you. You need to take a step back and think about you know what are the things that are you somebody who was looking to be in a small classroom, or are you somebody who's okay with a classroom of 200 or 300 students in one class? Are you somebody who is looking at a specific location in terms of weather, etc.? So think about this, take a step back, write down things that are important to you, like cost, scholarships, housing, admission requirements, etc., and then you can go towards that, finding the best fit option. Now once you start writing down a lot of these different factors, I can assure you, you will come up with a lot of them, right? Maybe you want a research driven program, maybe you want a very specific art school, so you can write down all these factors. But typically, there are three factors that usually stand out in this decision. Obviously, number one is major. Look at a school that offers the program that you're looking for. The second one is usually cost, right? Look at. I mean, there are universities in the US that can range in terms of cost a lot. So look at what your budget is. Have a conversation with your parents and decide what that budget should be for your bachelor's degree. So cost becomes a second important factor. And number three is location. Location ends up being a very important factor as well. So, location actually plays a very important role. And especially this year, we saw a lot of, students, they kind of wanted to be close to a certain relative that they had in the US. So the location definitely played an important role. I mean, there are times when a student wants to be completely far away from their relatives. So whatever that reason might be, but location does, play an important role. Talking about types of schools in the US, as I said, there are private universities, there are public universities, there are community colleges. Okay, so typically 4 year versus 2 year, a public or a private university is typically, like a university or a college. These are 4 year institutions. Community colleges, they are 2 year institutions. So that's where you go and get your associate's degree, and it's affordable to kind of transfer into a 4 year. It's pretty easy. It's a lot of US students will actually start at a community college first. Public versus private is always an important question, but I can tell you in a way, like what public universities are universities that are funded by the state government in the US. So they are funded by the state money, the taxpayers' money. Whereas private universities are, they are privately funded. But, a public university versus a private university, they have to go through the same set of accreditation, the same set of checks rather, to make sure that they are maintaining the. So I would not say that only public universities are good universities or only private universities are good universities. So for example, some of the very well-known institutions like Harvard or MIT or Stanford or Caltech, these are private schools. At the same time, there are some very well-known public institutions like UC Berkeley, UCLA, University of Washington. All these guys are all public schools. So there are fantastic institutions on both sides, but there are some few differences here and there. So you might want to think about what suits you better. But typically, I would not say that I'm only going to look at public universities, or I would not say I'm only going to look at private university. That may not be a factor at all, but you can look at what's the difference between a public and a private. Typically, public universities tend to have a larger classroom size. That means there will be more students in a public university classroom. A private university might have a lot more personal interaction kind of a situation. So, you might have a smaller classroom at a private university. Public universities tend to be a little more affordable as compared to private universities, but at the same time, private universities sometimes have a capability of giving a lot more scholarship than a public institution. So, it might balance out here or there. So, but it's important to know what is public versus private. The word college and university lots of times is used interchangeably in the United States. Like, lots of times, some of them might say college, some of them might say university, some of them might say school. But typically, as a thumb rule, I can say that college versus university, an institution which has a bachelor's, master's, and a PhD program would be called as a university. Whereas a college might be an institution which is primarily focused at undergraduate, that is bachelor's degree education, and might offer a few master's degree programs, right? So that's just a simple difference. There are some institutions which are non-profit and for-profit, so you might want to think about, that, because that might play an important role. So think about what for-profit institute, you can do your homework about that. And lastly, the accreditation. Accreditation is one of the most important factors. There are two types of accreditations in the United States. One is regional and the other one is national. So the regional accreditation is the strong accreditation. It is the stronger accreditation, whereas national is a little more like an umbrella level sort of thing, right? So as long as an institution that you're looking at is regionally accredited, you're fine. Regional is a lot more stronger. Okay. Talking about costs and scholarship, as I said, the cost can be really, I mean, with when you talk about choice, it also choice of location, choice of cost. So there will be some universities which will be $25,000-$30,000 a year, and there might be universities that are $80,000-$90,000 a year as well, right? So there's a lot of that range. That's why it's very important to first find out what your budget is and then start looking at these institutions. Uh, when you start looking at institutions, when you start looking at the cost, please remember, tuition is not the only expense that you'll have to think about. You'll also have to think about living expenses. You'll also have to think about some of those expenses like, meal plans, your housing, insurance, travel, miscellaneous, pocket money, etc. So make sure you use those factors well while calculating. Okay. Coming very quickly to types of scholarships. Typically, there are two types of scholarships in the US: merit-based and need-based. Majority of the international students will be focused on the merit-based scholarship. There are some universities in the US which are capable of giving need-based scholarship to international students as well, but that's a smaller number. So majority of the students will be looking at the merit-based scholarship. Okay. Now talking about merit-based scholarship, as the words, it is depends on primarily lots of times your grades, sometimes your SAT scores. It could be something like an athletic scholarship. Lots of times, some people might say athletic is a different type of scholarship, but it is sort of a merit that you have. It is for a special talent, that is athletics. That's the reason why sometimes it is actually a merit based. I can assure you that getting a full merit scholarship would be a little more easier than getting a full athletic scholarship. The athletic scholarships in the US are extremely competitive. Okay. There might be some universities that offer some additional scholarship depending on leadership potential, depending on some kind of very specific thing about your application process. So remember one thing: lots of times the scholarship department and the admissions department might be different, right? So even in such some situations, the admissions officer might not necessarily know about a scholarship that exists. So when you are looking at a university, make sure you kind of literally read through each and every page on that website, because there might be a scholarship available, which you could look at some point, which even the admissions office might not know about, right? So do remember, scholarship or merit-based scholarship is money that is being given to you. It will not come that easily. You really have to work towards it. Need-based, as it sounds, it depends on need. But remember, higher the need, higher the merit. There are universities in the US that will majority of the US universities for international students are need aware. That means if the students can't pay for that, they will not even admit that student. Okay, so when you are applying for any sort of need-based aid, make sure if you ask too much or ask more than what you need, you might not even get accepted at that institution. So you have to be very careful, read the fine print, and make sure you consult your school counselor, make sure you consult the university that you're applying to, and they will be able to guide you right. From here, I would talk a little bit about these application process. I mean, the application process at at USF is pretty much what I'm talking about right now. But again, if there are anything else that you want to ask, feel free to go about it. So there are two intakes. There is the August and September, that is the fall intake, right? There's a spring intake, that is the classes will start somewhere towards the end of January and first week of February. A typical deadline for a fall intake is November 1, if you're applying early. Okay, a regular decision deadline will be January 15th. So these are the two deadlines that you have to keep in mind. University of San Francisco adheres to these deadlines. So we look at, we keep these deadlines. So early action November 1, early decision November 1, January 15th is regular decision deadline, right? There are some universities which will go with the rolling admissions. Rolling means, you apply and you'll be considered for the next intake that is available. So sometimes they are a little fluid or little flexible with deadlines, right? There is a difference between early action and early decision. It's very important difference. If you are considering early decision, please make sure you know what early decision entails. Early decision is a binding contract. You're allowed to apply to only one university in early decision, so you have to be careful with it. Um, Please read more about what early decision means. Early action is, I would say, it is actually one of the better ones. You can apply early action to a university. If you apply to University of San Francisco as early action, you will know your admission decision by end of December or early January. If you apply by a regular decision, that is January 15th, we release our decisions by 15th of March. So that's typically what the deadlines mean. Looking at the application process, at the University of San Francisco, we accept the common application. There are common application is one of the more, I would say, common application, of course, for most of the US universities. There is some of the public school have their own application system, like the University of California system has, California, they have their own system. The State University of New York system has their own application. Apply Texas is for the Texas school. So there might be some other applications available as well. So make sure you kind of choose the right one. But again, as I said, Common App is widely used. There are over about 1,500 schools that accept the Common application. SAT or the ACT, if you guys have already done it, you can apply with the SAT or the ACT. This is the very first year that University of San Francisco has gone test optional. That means now, and again, we'll continue to be test optional going forward. That means test optional. Okay, let me actually talk a little bit about test optional. Test optional does not mean test not required. Okay, there are some universities that do not require the SAT. Okay, whereas there are other universities which are test optional or test flexible. Now, a university which is test optional, if you submit your score, I will take that into consideration in making a decision. But if you decide to not submit it, it's okay, right? So when should you submit your score and when should you not submit your score? If you think that your SAT score is the right representation of your academic strength, submit it. Okay. But if you feel that you've not done well on the SAT and your grades are way better, whereas your SAT scores are lower, then do not submit it, right? So for example, let's say I'm an IB student with 38 on 42, and my SAT score is 1380. Okay. In that case, I would submit it. But let's say if I'm a IB student with 40 on 42, but my SAT score is 1100, do not submit it. Okay, it might bring your chances down. So again, just to give you references of, let's say you're a student of CBSE or of school that follows like the 100% scale. If you are a student with 85, 90% and a 1300, 1400 score, it's a good one to submit. But if you're a student, let's say of 85, 90%, but your SAT score is like 1000, do not submit it. Okay. You can always reach out to the university that you're applying to and find out more about the test optional policy. English language proficiency, a lot of or majority of the universities will look at some form of English language proficiency. It could be TOEFL or IELTS. This year, another popular one that has come up is Duolingo. So that's also something that comes up. Application essay is extremely important. I would say that kind of really makes a big difference in your application process. At University of San Francisco, we require one application essay, that is the common application essay, and we also have a supplemental essay. That means you'll have to write a little bit about your connection to University of San Francisco. We require a letter of recommendation from one is mandatory. You can submit up to 3. But I think letter of recommendation is also something that will become optional next year onwards. Certificate of finances. Some universities will ask it during the application process. Some will ask for it later. So we require a sort of certification of finances. It's just a document that your parents can fill it out for you, and you can upload it. And usually, copy of passport is required. Okay. So once you've submitted all these things, we look at a lot of different things. Majority of the US schools, they are holistic. When I say holistic, that means we are going to look at a lot of different things that you've done. Your grades, your extracurriculars, your test scores, co-curricular activities, any sort of volunteering experience. So we will look at all of these things. As much as I would talk about holistic, that we will look at all of those things, I can assure you that majority of universities will first look at your academic performance, because at the end of the day, you are coming to us as a student, and that will be your primary role, right? Your primary role will be somebody who's taking classes now. And the reason we are a little focused on academics is because let's say a student with a slightly lower grade, let's say I accept him. Once he comes on campus, if he's not able to keep pace with the rest of the group, it's not it's not right for the student. So, to be fair to the student, we have to make sure that the student have a certain academic preparation in order to be successful at my campus. And that's why academic, like your grades from grade 9, 10th, 11th, and 12th will play an important role. Uniqueness is another thing that we look at, and the way we look at it is basically we will read your essay, we will review all the activities you have submitted, we will review your recommendation letter, all of those things together. We'll sort of look at what is unique, what stands out in this application. You don't have to make something up. This is, it's not your job to highlight uniqueness necessarily, but that is something that we will find out in your application. But if there are abilities, qualities, or something that you really want to highlight, make sure you do that in your essay. Okay. The way you were, the next thing is the way you were looking for the best fit. Even we are looking for the best fit. We want to make sure that if you come to us, you come on my campus, you want to be successful. So, we are also looking at the right match. Will you be successful on my campus? Will you be happy on my campus? Will you be, will you enjoy your experience? So those are certain things that we are thinking about when we review your application. Motivation and commitment is something that is easily seen from your essay, from the supplemental essay that we talk about. We kind of, in the supplemental essay, we like to see what is your connection to my institution, right? So have you done some homework about USF? Do you see a match of values in terms of, I don't know, social justice? Do you see a match of values in terms of the location that we are at? So whatever that might be, you don't have to just necessarily push that volunteering or experience or social service. And if you're genuinely interested, do it, but you don't have to push it. It's very easy for us to figure that out. And of course, potential leadership skills is something that we are always looking at. So these are a lot of different things, but as I said, the academic performance does play a very important role. That's pretty much it about the general the general part of the presentation. I'll quickly go over what kind of programs USF has to offer. So this is actually a picture from our campus. You can see the St. Ignatius right in the background. So University of Kunal?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Students, please drop in your email addresses in the chat box if you're interested to get in touch. I know, there was interest in the University of San Francisco before we started this session, and of course, I forgot to make that announcement. I just wanted to make a quick note. So you can directly be in be in touch with Mr. Pradhan after the session. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Kunal. So just quick overview about the campus. We are, as I said, located in the city of San Francisco. We are the geographic center of the city of San Francisco in California. Mid-sized campus, I would say our total student population is about 11,000, out of which 7,000 students are undergraduate. A typical class size on a USF classroom will be about 20-25 students at the max. As I said, the student faculty ratio is 13:1. We are known for our diversity. We are actually pretty well known for our diversity. We have a beautiful 55-acre campus. As I said, it's right in the center of the, in the city of San Francisco. So the city of San Francisco is actually a 7 mile by 7 mile square. And our main campus, what we call it actually, this thing that you can see right behind me, is called as the Lone Mountain. And that's the geographic center of the city, which is 3.5. So on the top left side of this picture, as you can see, that's the Golden Gate Bridge. On the right hand side, you will see the downtown San Francisco area. You'll see we actually have a School of Management campus in the downtown area. It's a big city. It's a beautiful location. Talking a little bit about academics, we have primarily we have a College of Arts and Sciences. We have a School of Management and School of Nursing and Health Professions. These are the three institutions at the undergraduate level that offer programs. There are two other institutions. One is the School of Education and the School of Law, which are primarily for master students only. Okay, so College of Arts and Sciences has programs like social sciences, you have economics, psychology, the other programs like computer science, data science, engineering. All of these come under College of Arts and Sciences. These are some of the popular majors at the College of Arts and Sciences. Engineering, I would say, is slightly difficult to get into. We only take 30 students every year out, and for those 30 seats, we get like way more than thousands of applications. So it can get a little competitive for engineering. The other programs, one important thing about engineering. So we offer three different streams of engineering. We offer um, electrical and computer engineering. We offer environmental engineering, and we offer sustainability built. Right. So sustainability engineering is somewhat like a subset of civil and architecture together. And if you are a student who is interested in engineering, you should apply for engineering. You can switch out of, you can change your major from engineering to anything else, but you cannot start as, let's say, a computer science major and then change into engineering. So you can switch out of engineering, but you cannot switch in. You can change from any other major to any other major, but engineering, and there's one more, nursing. Nursing is not very popular on this side of the globe, so we don't have to worry too much about it. But um, if you are interested in engineering, apply for engineering. Because when I evaluate an application for engineering, I look at it slightly differently. There are some other factors that I review in terms of some very specific subjects and some very specific scores. School of Management, again, due to the location, very popular. In School of Management, we have programs like accounting, entrepreneurship. We are actually ranked in top 20 on the Forbes list for entrepreneurship. Our finance, our marketing, and our finance, we are ranked in top 30, I guess. But yes, the programs are pretty fantastic. Entrepreneurship is a very popular choice, especially because of the location, the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley area. A lot of students are interested, and when I say entrepreneurship and innovation, that word innovation is over there for a reason, because it's a lot more towards like tech startups rather, or financial technology is a very upcoming trend in the Bay Area. So the entrepreneurship program will teach you, well, if you plan to maybe start a new enterprise, or if you are somebody with a family business, if you want to grow a current business. So usually those are the two career outcomes for a student who is going into entrepreneurship and innovation. Hospitality is actually a very popular program. It's one of the programs which has mandatory internships. That means you will be placed in a hospitality sector during your bachelor degree itself. So these are some of the popular School of Management majors. So if you are a student, let's say, interested in computer science and taking a minor of business analytics, you can absolutely do that. Our, again, economics in College of Arts and Sciences is a STEM major. It's a pretty heavy math program as well. So lots of times students, they choose economics and finance as a minor sometimes, or maybe like a business analytics as a minor. These are the popular combinations. School of Nursing and Health, we are actually ranked in top 10 for this program, but we usually don't get a lot of nursing applications coming from this side of the world. So, but if you, it's I would say at University of San Francisco, the most difficult program to get into is the nursing program. We have some combination programs as well, applied economics, biotechnology. Applied economics is a very popular program currently. I would say a few years, we actually started this program about 2 or 3 years back. We noticed that companies like Uber, companies like Amazon, they hired a lot of economics students, primarily because, if you are a student with computer science or data science background, you will be able to look and manage data. But when it comes to somebody who's, economics background person with, programming and analytical skills, you'll be able to comprehend the concepts of pricing. You'll be able to, work on those pricing models a lot better. So this combination is very popular. Biotechnology, again, Bay Area has always been known for technology, computer science, IT, but it's also a big hub for biomedical equipments. And so biotechnology ends up being a very popular program with a very fantastic placement record. Uh, Again, Silicon Valley computer science, I don't even have to talk about it. That's definitely one of the most popular ones. Financial analysis, again, with if you are somebody who's thinking more towards the line of, I would say, hedge fund management, consulting, those kind of jobs. Then the financial analytics masters is the combination available. So all of these programs are bachelor's and master's together. So, at the end of 4+1, at the end of 5 years, you directly get your master's degree. I won't get into too much of detail, but typically in the United States, there will be a major. So for example, if you're a student of psychology, psychology is your major. University core is more like the liberal art background that everyone has. So whether you are an engineering student, whether you are a computer science student or a school of management student, this university core is for everyone. It gives you a very strong base. Um, then there are electives, and you have all the flexibility that is there. Again, not to I won't talk about campus life, etc. If you're interested, you can go and find out more. We are a Division 1 school. We have 15 Division 1 teams. That means that's the highest level of sport that is played on a US campus. So a lot of, again, one big benefit of the campus is the location. So yes, it is a community in itself. You can be part of all these things, but at the same time, you don't have to have, like, college need not be 100% of your life, right? You can be involved in the city activities, etc. So the location really plays a big important role. We have all sorts of things, like we have the Indian Student Organization, study abroad. Again, you guys will probably be already studying abroad. So, but we have study of, like, if you want to take 1 semester in Europe, you'll have that option available. We have a semester abroad option available in 50 different countries. Uh, Location, I said, that makes a big difference in terms of placements. We are known for that. On an average, students will do anywhere between 3 to 5 internships. Majority of these will be with companies like Apple, Google, Tesla. So these are some of the companies where majority of our students were placed in the last couple of years. We have a fantastic career services cell that helps you with the whole application process, etc. This is the tuition fee is about $51,000. We offer a scholarship up to 50% of the tuition fee as well. So that's the scholarship that's available. That's pretty much it. That's I just kind of went over some of those things. This is my contact detail. Let's go over to questions now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Pradhan Pradhan. Please proceed with the Q&A. Thank you.
Perfect. So, okay, let me go one by one. So first, hold on, 5:41, I'll go with timestamps. Right. So first is Ansh has asked the question, could you explain how we can pursue a combination of majors like you mentioned about business and arts? What will be the duration of our degree, credits to graduate, and cost? So that's a fantastic question. When you talk about combination, let's say if you decide to do a degree in finance and fine art, right? So these are two different majors. Typically, you can finish a bachelor's degree with double major in 4 years as well. But let's say if you both of your majors are completely far apart, like for example, let's say you are doing a bachelor's degree in physics and psychology, or let's say you're doing a physics and performing arts, there might not be any common classes here, and you might need more time to graduate. So when you are thinking about doing a double degree, or you're thinking about doing a double major, typically you should get in touch with an academic advisor. So at University of San Francisco, every student has at least two advisors. One is called as an academic success coach, and the other one is your academic advisor. The academic advisor typically is a faculty member from the department. So for example, if you are from the finance department, a faculty member will be assigned as your coach, as your advisor, and you can discuss your goals with them, and they will help you choose those classes. But yes, that will be absolutely possible. The cost will typically remain same if you are finishing it in the same duration. So for example, if you are finishing it in 4 years, I don't think so. I mean, there won't be additional cost. But if you decide to extend your bachelor's degree, maybe by 1 semester, you're paying that additional cost as well, right? So, you can actually, it's not very difficult to do two majors at all, as long as you make sure you're in, you're taking the right guidance. And on most US campuses, you will have that, guidance available. Okay, that's done. So the next question is, I'm a biology student. Can I study medical studies at the bachelor's level, degree level? Other than medical degree, which other degree can international Indian student pursue? Um, okay, got it. So Nandini has a question about pursuing medicine, right? So if you are somebody who wants to pursue a bachelor's degree, yes, you can pursue bachelor's degree in biology. You will be, and if you are somebody who wants to be considered for medical school later on, what I would recommend is, you have to be on the pre-health track. Okay, on the pre-health track, typically students, I mean, you could be doing your bachelor's degree in any major. It could be a major in performing arts if you wish to. It could be a major in computer science. It could be any major, but you will also be on the pre-medical track. The pre-medical track, again, I talked about advisors. So if you are a pre-health student, you will get additional third advisor who will make sure that you are choosing the right subjects in order for you to be eligible to apply to a medical school. Typically, in the second or third year of your bachelor's degree, you will take an exam called as MCAT. Once you take that exam and once you finish your bachelor's degree with the pre-health track, you will be eligible to apply to a medical school. If you are somebody who's interested in medicine, I strongly recommend do a lot of homework before even applying to an American school, especially if you are not an American citizen. Okay, so make sure you do that. Done. The next question is Dave. Would private universities deemed to be higher ranked and provide better learning environment? Okay, so the thing is that when I say private and public, the thing is that it's a conversation that always exists, right? Are private universities better or the public universities better? So what really matters is what is, as I said, what is right for you. A typical private university will have a smaller classroom, so are you somebody who will thrive in a smaller classroom? Or let's say if you go to a public institution where there are like 200 students in one class, so are you somebody who might thrive in that kind of environment? So what really matters is what is best for you. Now if you talk about rank, first of all, I mean, ranking is just, there is no official ranking. Ranking is done by a lot of different private agencies, newspapers, magazines. So as a student, if you're really considering ranking, do you what you need to think about is, what goes into that ranking, like what data goes into that ranking, does it even matter to you? So for example, some universities are ranked on the basis of um, number of research publications that come out of that particular university. So let's say if you are somebody who's not really interested in research, that does not make sense to you. But when you talk about, are private universities higher ranked? Not necessarily. I mean, there are some very top ranked public universities like UC Berkeley, UCLA. So these guys are all public universities, and even they are highly ranked. So a public or private doesn't necessarily define quality of the, as I said, quality depends on the accreditation, and whether it is a public university or a private university, both have to go through the same accrediting bodies. I hope that answers your question. What is the difference between US News National Universities ranking or regional universities ranking? And okay, the questions about US News National Universities ranking or regional universities ranking. The national ranking and regional ranking is not, please don't connect this to the accreditation. The rankings and accreditation has, I mean, they're not intertwined in any ways. You again, national ranking is basically, I would say, which is the best university in India. So what is the, or versus which is the best university in Western India. So that's the regional ranking. Whereas, so that's how the rankings are pretty much designed. I mean, there might be a ranking even for which is the best university in Mumbai, right? So I could easily say, I'm the best university in South Bombay versus, are you the best university? So the region can be defined by the body that is kind of creating those rankings. I wouldn't really look at that so much. I know there are a lot of questions about ranking, but honestly, I can tell you ranking does not define anything. Just think about it this way, like there are some universities, you'll see that they are ranked in like top 20 or top 30, and suddenly they go all the way down to maybe 50, 60. What do you think that they did horribly wrong in 1 year that they dropped so many places? Or at the same time, there was university which was never heard and suddenly it is in top 20. What do you think that they did right in a very short span of time that they jumped so many rankings? So usually again, I said rankings, be just very careful with it. We don't love them, but again, if that's what makes students, look at them, but let that not be the primary way to choose institutions. Next question. What is the average range of merit-based scholarship students can expect to receive? So at University of San Francisco, we offer anywhere between $2,500 a year up to $25,000, which is up to 50%. There are some other universities which might even offer full scholarship, but very rare and very like a lot more difficult to get into. But otherwise, up to 50% is possible. Depends on the university. We offer up to 50%. If you guys are thinking about scholarship, there's other important factor that you might also want to consider is the credits. So if you are a student who is in IB or A-level program at University of San Francisco, depending on your IBHL score and your A-level score, you will be eligible to finish your bachelor's degree in 3 years, right? That means you will save 1 full year worth of tuition, you will save 1 full year worth of cost. If you are a CBSE or a ISC or a state board student, you could still bring that scholarship cost down, right? And so your cost of education down, and that will be with the help of AP exams. If you are a student from CBSE or those kind of things, just look at the AP exams. That will help you bring the cost down. Okay. Next is Isha Jain. Which admission type is preferred for having a better chance of an admit? EDA, ED. That's a fantastic question. It's a tricky question though. So early action and early decision. The deadline is same, right? It's 1st of November. Not every university accepts a early decision admission. Now, when you apply early decision, like we know that you are very serious about coming to USF, and that's why you applied early decision. When you apply early decision, yes, there is a certain benefit that, for example, if I'm going to accept you, if let's say again, I'm just explaining this for the sake of simplicity, but this is not how it works. Okay. So let's say I'm going to say cutoff is 90 on 100. Okay. And if you are a student who's applied with early decision, maybe even 87 or 85 might just work out. Okay. So that, yes, early decision will give you that slight benefit, but it's not like a complete. So if you are looking at a certain university, and if you are interested in applying to that university as early decision, you should ask them what is their admit rate at early decision, because lots of times early decision sometimes is a lot more competitive because that many number of students are applying early decision, right? So think about early decision. You have to be very careful with early decision. And if you get accepted with early decision and some other university gives you a full scholarship as well, even then you cannot accept that full scholarship. You will have to accept the early decision admission. So you have to be very careful with early decision. If you apply early decision, your decision comes out, say, by mid-December. And early action, you will get your decision by end of December, early January. Arana Oswal, the question is, if I do not take the SAT and I'm applying as a test optional school, would this impact? No, if you don't have the SAT score and if you're applying test optional, no problem at all, right? But if the university is asking for it explicitly, then yes, then it will be a problem. But I think next year I haven't heard of any specific university that'll be asking for it. So without the SAT also, you're going to be fine. Another question with Isha, what is your supplemental essay topic and should we submit it at the time of scholarship consideration? So the supplemental essay topic, once you start filling the Common App, you'll actually see it. It is about social justice. So University of San Francisco is a Jesuit institution, right? When you say Jesuit, that means if you're familiar with like St. Xavier's School, St. Xavier's College in Bombay, or a convent school in India, so something of that sort. So social justice is a very big angle on the campus. So even if you're an engineering student, you'll have a certain social justice angle to your education. That means we want to make sure that the student is like a socially responsible citizen. Like you are aware about what actions or what impact it has on people, right? So social justice is definitely something that stands out. So that will be the essay topic. But if that is not where you find a right match, it's okay to not write about that. It's okay to say you find the match with University of San Francisco with the location or with a certain program. But yes, having some social justice angle definitely helps. Can you please go over your application requirements for letter of recommendation and extracurriculars? So letter of recommendation, we require one, but as I said, next year we might not require it completely. But otherwise, letter of one is, at the moment, one is mandatory. Extracurriculars, that is something that you will enter through the common application. In common application, you're allowed to enter 10 activities. So you can just enter all your extracurriculars over there. The next one is, can you share if your programs include actually, one thing that I forgot to talk about, the scholarship that the student had asked about. At University of San Francisco, you don't have to apply for scholarship separately. Once you submit your application, we review it. Once we review the application, once you are eligible for admission, we'll automatically consider you for scholarship. So you don't have to apply separately. So can you share if your program include practical internships and how do we be a part of them? So majority of the undergraduate program, it's not, internships are not mandatory at the undergraduate level, except for that hospitality program. But if you are somebody who's interested in doing internships, again, the location for us makes a huge difference. And as I said, majority of the students will do at least 3 internships during their bachelor's degree. So yes, you can do internship, but usually students don't do it in the first year. It's usually after the second year, but it's absolutely possible. The next question is from Naimi about the change of major you shared. Uh, when we are supposed to at a latest declare our major and minor by. So major, I would say, if you are coming undecided and if you want to finish your bachelor's degree in 4 years, you should declare your major at the end of 2 years. If you are somebody who's trying to finish your bachelor's degree in 3 years, by the end of first year, you should declare your major. So the earlier, the better, of course. Pratham Reddy, what are the difference between University of San Francisco and San Francisco State University? Good question, great question actually. Both of us are located in the city of San Francisco. University of San Francisco is a private Jesuit school. San Francisco State University is a public institution. So we are very closely related, located rather, but completely different type of institution. SFSU is part of the, what do you say, the California State University system. University of San Francisco is a private school. We are actually the first university in the city of San Francisco. What research opportunities can undergraduate international students pursue at research depends on the program. For example, if your program, like for example, psychology students do a lot of practicum internships, even research, biology students do it, physics students do it. So depending on your program, yes, you could do a research, but for some programs, you know, there's just no research available. So it depends on this major that you choose and the department that you go into. If you are a student with like biology major, you might intern with UCSF, which is a medical center nearby. The biology students also go with Genentech, which is a biotechnology company. Students who are psychology students might go with Kaiser hospital chains. So depending on your major, you might pursue research if it is required or if you are interested. We also have something called as an honors college. Honors college is like, let's say if you are accepted to University of San Francisco, your application will be evaluated further if you are eligible to go to an honors college. So like only if you're a student with a high GPA and high test scores, you might qualify for honors. And honors students sometimes, you know, they have these additional research projects available for them. Priyank has the next question. What are the minimum grading requirements for gaining an admission and scholarship? We don't really put a minimum as such, but if like if you're an IB student, I would say last year our IB average was around 35, 36 out of 42. I would say, you know, in terms of CBSE, it's very hard to put it that way, but 75, 80% plus should be fine. But there is no minimums, like there's no minimum as such. We look at a lot of different things. We convert your grades to a US scale and then review your application. Last one, sorry, second last one is Isha Jain. Please, can you share about your campus safety and meal plan options for Indian students? So campus safety, I would say, is not really a big concern because of our location. We are located in a pretty upscale residential neighborhood of the city. Safety has never really come up as a concern in the area as such. but that being said, all sorts of safeties procedures are available over there. I mean, all sorts of safety facilities are available, especially like, let's say if you are staying on campus. Let's say you are, your dorm room versus the next room which is there. So even a person from the next room will not have access to your room. So there are multiple layers of security. I mean, security of a building, security of a floor. There are these security officers available. So all of these levels of security are available. Let's say if you want to go from your library to your dorms at night, if you want, like, you can have somebody walk with you. So there's public safety service officers are also available. So it's pretty. I mean, again, it's a pretty like a quaint neighborhood. So it's not very like, it's not like a downtown area where you don't have to worry about those kind of things. And yeah, meal plans about for Indian students. I mean, again, city of San Francisco, right? So San Francisco is known to have like all sorts. So we have, if you're on a keto diet, even you'll get keto diet in the whether you are a vegan, whether you are, so all those options will be available on campus if you decide to stay off campus. But at the same time, we don't force a student to stay on campus. If you want to stay off campus, it's absolutely fine. The next question is Pratham Reddy. I'm a 12th student. How can IB students avail the 3-year program, and will this increase my OPT? Also, do IB students get English test, uh, language waiver? I'll answer your questions one by one. Number, how can IB students avail 3-year program? So if you're an IB student, as long as your IBHL, you score 4 or higher on your IBHL subjects at the end of your, like 12th IB diploma, you will be eligible to finish your bachelor's degree in 3 years. You will earn almost 30 credits with your IBHL subjects. It does not have any impact on your OPT. I mean, you will still get 3 years. I mean, if you're a STEM student, you will get those 3 years of OPT. It's just that you will start earlier, right? That means you finish your bachelor's earlier, you start your OPT earlier. Do IB students get English language waiver? You can get the English language waiver if you are a IBHL English with a predicted of 5 or higher, or if you have a IGCSE English score of B or higher, or if you've done the SAT with 560 or higher on the critical reading. So there are multiple ways of English waivers possible. You can always reach out to me. I'll let you know how that can be done. The next question is Dave Gogoi. When will your admission process begin for next year? And can you please go over the deadlines? Our application just opened up on August 1. The Common App is open from August 1. And the first deadline, the early deadline is 1st of November, and the final deadline will be 15th of January. The next question is Ansh. So would there be a time to go over tuition cost and other expenses? Absolutely. Feel free to just reach out to me. As said, the cost of the tuition is about $51,000 a year. If you are staying on campus, I would say dorm rooms, twin sharing, $10,000 a year. A meal plan about $5,000 a year. I usually tell students to say calculate $4,000 as miscellaneous expenses, pocket money. What else? Insurance can be about 2,500, I guess. 2,500 will be insurance. We estimate about $2,000 for books, whatever you decide to buy. But these are the expenses, pretty much. In terms of living expenses, if you feel that you have friends or family in the area where you can stay with them, by all means, we don't make it mandatory for you to stay on campus. You can save your cost that way as well. Nandini, is housing located on campus? Yes, absolutely. Housing is located on campus. For housing, can Indian students get a housing RA for housing and meal plan free? Not in the first year. Whether you are an Indian student or international student or anyone, RA first year is very difficult. Maybe in the second or third year you could apply for RA's position, because with RA's position there are responsibilities that will come to you. Usually not in the first year, very rare. But yes, RA is possible. I mean, there are students who can apply for the RA's position. Would you please share information about your current and past Indian students and what they do? Well, we are about a 160-year-old institution. So there are just a lot of alumni. We have a lot of alumni all over the world. We have an alumni section on our website. Feel free to just go over there. If you talk about Indian students, we have Indian students coming from like lots of different, like Mumbai, Delhi, typical big cities as well. We have students coming from, this year I have a student coming from Shillong. We have students coming from Indore, Jaipur, Uti. So, well, pretty much everywhere in India. So that's absolutely possible. In terms of, you can always go on Facebook and, you can on Instagram and find the Indian Student Organization page. You can connect with some of those current students as well. We have students coming from like some of the schools in India. We have like this year I had, we have students coming from Oberoi International, Bombay. We have students coming from Singapore International. We have students coming from the Poddar schools, Indus, Bangalore, Indus schools. We always get students from there. So it depends on whichever school you have. You might have somebody or one of your seniors who have come to us. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to connect to the Indian Student Association also. I mean, if you talk about alumni, I mean, famous alumni, one of the most famous alumni is definitely the people who started Starbucks. Also, the founders of Starbucks studied at University of San Francisco. We have a former president of a South American country. We have a former CEO of Intel. We have a pretty, I mean, we are a 160-year-old institution, so we have a very strong alumni base. Last question by Isha. I would like to learn about the part-time work opportunities on campus. Absolutely, you'll be allowed to work for at least 20 hours per week on campus. And you're also allowed to do off-campus internships during the summer breaks. Do we work with faculty or these general jobs? Do we work with faculty or are these general jobs? This is depends on you. If you applied for a job which is with a faculty, you'll work with the faculty. If you applied for a job, like let's say at the health center, there'll be a, so it depends on the jobs that you apply for. There are jobs available with faculty. There are at the same time jobs available with cafeterias, event centers. So all sorts of things are available. So that was the last question. If you have any, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is right here. Hold on for a second. Let me. I'm just going to open the chat. Is there anything in the chat that you
actually? There are a few students who have dropped in their emails. Thank you.
I will just give you the link so that they can just directly, if you are interested, just like enter your details over here, so you won't have to worry about right here. I've just pasted that link on the chat box. Feel free to register yourself over there. You can enter your details and you'll probably get like information. Sometimes we do share the application fee waivers. I can't promise, not right now, but sometimes that happens towards closer to a deadline or something of that sort. So feel free to register yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a comprehensive session on the US admissions process, the education process. I mean, that was really, really very much in depth and attentive to detail, Pranav. That was, thank you so much. And of course, about your institution, the University of San Francisco. I have a quick question. Can we share this link in our outreach campaign with the school recording and everything for contact whoever wants to get in directly touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Students, I'll be waiting online just for about 5 more minutes. If you want to just click those links and keep it ready in the background in your browsers, either on your phones or tablets or Macs or PCs, however you're logging in today. But I want to thank Mr. Pranav Pradhan for your kind time and support in joining us this evening for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series. We truly appreciate your very in-depth information session. I'm pretty sure the students enjoyed it. Thank you to all the 12th grade students and parents for asking such lovely questions. And thank you to Mr. Pranav Pradhan for answering all of these questions. The recording of the session will be available in the next 24 hours and will be shared with everyone. But Mr. Pranav, I really want to thank you for giving your time on a Friday evening to us and for hosting this session.
Thank you so much, Kunal. Thank you everyone for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you, students. And thank you, Pranav, and I'll be online for the next 5 minutes just so that that link, which Pranav has said, can be utilized, and whoever wants to click it and fill details can continue to do so. But I think that's a wrap for the day, and I wish everyone a safe day. Please take care, and we look forward to being in touch with you. Take care. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.